Right, welcome back. Let's continue with more news further afield. France's ambassador to Niger will stay in the country despite pressure to leave from leaders of the recent coup. That's according to French President Emmanuel Macron. In a statement, Macron also reiterated France's support to Niger's ousted President Mohamed Bazoum, whose decision not to resign, Macron in fact called courageous. On that note, let's get the latest on these developments in Niger. We're going to be joined by SABC News correspondent Ajack Mangut from Abuja Nigeria. Ajack, good afternoon. Perhaps on the back of the 48-hour deadline having expired for French envoys in Niger to leave the country, we now heard that Macron says that his ambassador will remain in Niger. And I wonder if you could speak to what you're hearing on the ground as far as those threats from the junta are concerned.
Yes, indeed. The junta gave the French ambassador 48 hours to leave, but we've seen defiance from the ambassador and President Emmanuel Macron saying that the ambassador is not going to leave because they do not seem to regard the military junta as the legitimate government in Niger. But in the wake of the coup, we've seen in recent weeks where French anti-French sentiments have been growing in Niger, where the coup leaders and even the people and the citizens in the country have complained against France, saying that the French, which is a former colonial power in the country, has been interfering in its affairs and it wants France to leave. And we've also seen that play out in countries like Mali and Burkina Faso, where the French troops have been asked to leave as well. And so we've seen this sentiments growing since the coup, and which is one of the reasons, cited by the military junta in terms of toppling President Bazoum's government, because he is seen as a key ally of France and the West in fighting Islamist insurgents in the region. But France is saying that its ambassador is not going to leave, and it's still regarding President Bazoum as the legitimate president of Niger Republic.
Ajack, the next question is, will it be safe for him to then remain in the country? We obviously saw what happened to the ousted president being held at the presidential palace by the military junta. What's ecowas also saying?
Well, at this point, it's not really clear how the junta is going to respond to this defiance by the French government in terms of not leaving the country, because it has said that it does not want France to interfere in its affairs. It has also warned against interference by any foreign governments, especially looking at the threats by ECOWAS to intervene by sending troops if diplomacy fails to reinstate President Bazoum. But at this point, it's not clear what sort of action the junta will take. But there seems to be a stance by the French government to say that they're not going anywhere because they are not regarding the military junta as the legitimate government in Niger. But the junta is saying that France needs to leave. And based on what we have seen in Mali and Burkina Faso, it's not really clear what's going to happen. But we should know more in the coming hours and days as this unfolds.
Ajack, let me wrap up this conversation. Has there been an update on President Mohamed Bazoum and the thousands of migrants who try to reach Europe that have been caught in Niger, potential humanitarian crisis unfolding? Could you walk to what is also transpiring on the ground in terms of those conditions?
We do understand that President Bazoum is doing fairly okay. The delegation from Nigeria, led by former military head of state, that's Abdul Salam Abubakar, was one of the delegations sent by ECOWAS to Niger, and they were able to meet with the deposed President Bazoum. But they have said that he told them that he wants the military junta is not allowing his son to leave the country because the son came back to the country on holiday and he has not been able to go back to school. So they are trying to negotiate to see how he can go back to school as well. And then they've also said that he has been able to see his doctors now and again, but outside that, he is still being detained at the presidential palace. And of course, there's also the concern about the humanitarian crisis in Niger, looking at the fact that the sanctions imposed by ECOWAS is already biting hard on many of the citizens, especially those who live around the border communities, because the borders are closed. We understand that trucks which are supposed to carry goods from one part of Niger to another part of the border with Nigeria, for example, has not been able to go through. And so a lot of people are facing high food prices. Some of them are facing blackouts because electricity has been cut off, and also getting humanitarian assistance to the more than 4 million people who need them has been sort of a hassle in recent days. And so many are scrambling to see how they can, find a refuge any way that they can. But there is concern as to the humanitarian crisis in Niger, which is why ECOWAS and the international community are calling for a peaceful resolution to this crisis so that the humanitarian crisis in Niger does not deteriorate even further.
Ajack Mangut, thank you very much for that update. SABC News correspondent from Abuja, Nigeria, bringing us the latest there. With regards to Niger, we now know that the 48-hour deadline has expired for the French envoy in Niger to leave the country. So we're obviously going to have to monitor developments to see what unfolds from there too.